If someone had told me years ago that my wife, Jessica, had been sneaking around with a 25-year-old mailman for half a decade, I would have laughed and called them crazy. But here I am, living proof that truth is stranger than fiction. And let me tell you, my revenge? Absolutely flawless. You'll see what I mean soon enough. Jessica wasn't just my wife, she was my entire world. We had over 15 years together, and even though things had been feeling a little off lately, I figured that was just part of the natural ebb and flow of marriage. Kids were never part of our equation. Right from the start, Jessica was upfront about her health, making that impossible, and I was fine with it. I didn't marry her to start a family. I married her because she was magnetic, charismatic, sexy, sharp as a blade. Even at 42, she could command an entire room with nothing more than a glance. She had curves that turned heads and a confidence that was absolutely intoxicating. And if I'm being honest, she had me wrapped around her finger. Maybe that's why I didn't question it when our spark started to flicker. I chalked it up to routine, life settling into a rhythm. We had our own little world. I worked remotely, running my consulting business, while Jessica put in part-time hours at an art gallery. It wasn't thrilling, but it was steady. Or at least I thought it was. Then there was Ethan, the mailman. He had been dropping off our letters and packages for years, just another friendly face in the neighborhood. Young in shape, always flashing a smile. He seemed harmless, the kind of guy you nod at in passing but never think twice about. What I didn't know was that while I was busy working, he was spending his afternoons getting very comfortable in my wine cellar, with my wife. Of course, the truth didn't hit me all at once. No, it unfolded slowly, like a twisted, slow-motion car crash I couldn't look away from. The warning signs had been there all along. Jessica's quick stops at the gallery started lasting longer. She suddenly cared a lot more about her appearance, new perfume, fresh hairstyles, extra effort in how she dressed. But instead of seeing it for what it was, I blamed myself. I told myself I was too distracted, too focused on work, too something. Looking back, I feel like a fool. 5 years. 5 years. Of betrayal happening right under my nose. And the worst part? I didn't figure it out until I walked in on the truth. Jessica and Ethan, tangled up in each other like a couple of reckless teenagers, right there in my own damn wine cellar. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to that moment soon. Right now, there's one thing you need to know about Jessica. She was a master manipulator. She played me like a puppet, keeping me exactly where she wanted while I ran myself ragged, making sure our life stayed comfortable. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about payback, reinvention, and stepping into a whole new life. Because the second I caught Jessica with her boy toy, something inside me snapped. And that's the moment my real story began. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I remember every detail like it happened yesterday. I had just wrapped up an early client call, expecting the usual sounds of the house, Jessica moving around, music playing, maybe the hum of the washing machine. But instead, there was nothing. Just silence. Too much of it. She had told me she'd be at the gallery all day, busy prepping for an upcoming exhibit. And I had no reason to doubt her. Why would I? Still, something felt off. It's hard to explain, but when you've lived in a place long enough, you just know when something isn't right. Maybe it was the barely there murmur of voices. Maybe it was the soft creak of a floorboard that shouldn't have moved. Whatever it was, my gut wasn't letting it go. Curiosity got the better of me. I made my way down the hall, past the kitchen, straight to the basement door. Down there was my wine cellar, a space I'd spent years building with my own hands. It was supposed to be my retreat, my quiet corner of the world where life's noise couldn't reach me. But that day, it became something else entirely. As I stepped onto the stairs leading to the basement, I heard it, light, breathy laughter, followed by the unmistakable murmur of whispered voices. My chest tightened. My pulse kicked up a notch. Who the hell was down there? The door was cracked just enough to let those sounds drift up. I pushed it open a little more and crept down, my feet moving carefully over each step, though my stomach was already in knots. Then I saw them. Jessica. And Ethan. She was perched on a wooden crate, her blouse undone, her skirt pushed up, legs wrapped around him like he was the only man in the world. His uniform shirt was halfway off, their bodies tangled together in a way that told me this wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was routine. For a second, my brain refused to process it. The air felt thick, my vision blurred with a mix of fury and disbelief. 5 years. 5 damn years of lies unraveled in front of me in an instant. I must have made a noise, maybe a sharp breath, maybe the scrape of my shoe against the concrete, because Jessica's head snapped toward me. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. "Oh my God!" she whispered, fumbling to button her blouse. Ethan, on the other hand, just kept moving, completely unfazed, like my presence didn't change a damn thing. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch between us, heavy and suffocating. Jessica was the first to crack. "It's not what it looks like," she said, her voice unsteady but still clinging to that desperate need for control. I let out a dry, humorless laugh, the sound bouncing off the basement walls. "Oh, really? Then please enlighten me. What exactly am I looking at here? A wine tasting gone horribly wrong?" Ethan tried to stammer something, an excuse, an apology, who knows, but I shut him down with a simple raised hand. "Save it. Just go. Both of you." Jessica hesitated, and I could see the gears turning in her head. She was calculating, weighing her options, already working out how to spin this in her favor. That was always her way, 3 steps ahead, twisting the truth into whatever version suited her best. Not this time. "Get out," I repeated, my voice calm, steady. Ethan didn't need to be told twice. He bolted up the stairs without looking back. But Jessica? She lingered. And when she finally met my eyes again, the fear I'd seen just moments before had shifted into something else. Defiance. "We need to talk about this," she said, her tone level, controlled, like she still thought she could steer this conversation in her favor. I locked eyes with her, unwavering. "Oh, we will. Just not today." She opened her mouth, ready to argue, but I was already turning away, walking back down the stairs. I left her standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of what I thought was my life. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, pacing the house, replaying the scene over and over in my head like some cruel, never-ending loop. Every object she had touched, a half-empty coffee cup, her favorite throw blanket, felt like a fresh slap to the face. Part of me wanted to lash out, to break something, to demand answers. But I knew better. Jessica thrived on confrontation. She could twist any argument into a performance, mixing just the right amount of half-truths and charm to leave me questioning my own reality. If I was going to handle this, I had to be smarter. I had to think ahead. I had to beat her at her own game. That night, Jessica came home like nothing had happened. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, and she had the audacity to greet me with a casual, "Hey, babe," as she set her purse on the counter. I didn't respond. She turned to me, eyes scanning my face, reading the tension in my stance. "So, are we going to talk about what happened earlier?" I leaned back against the kitchen counter, crossing my arms. "Oh, you mean when I caught you screwing the mailman in my wine cellar?" I let the words hang there for a beat. "Yeah. We should definitely talk about that." Her lips pressed into a tight line, but she didn't flinch. "It's not as simple as you think," she said, her voice measured, as if she was still convinced she could reason her way out of this. I scoffed, shaking my head. "Jessica, you've been sleeping with him for 5 years. Exactly how much of this am I supposed to see in shades of gray?" She sighed, exasperated, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her tone softer now, calculated. "But let's be honest, things between us haven't been right for a long time. You've been distant. Always working. Always distracted. I needed to feel alive again." Her words hit like a sucker punch, but I refused to let it show. This was her game: deflect, manipulate, rewrite the story until somehow I became the villain. Not this time. "So it's my fault," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You cheated because I was working to keep this house running. Got it. Jessica took a step closer, her expression shifting, softer now, calculated. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to explain. Maybe we can fix this. Go to counseling or something. I let out a quiet, humorless chuckle, shaking my head. Counseling won't fix this, Jessica. But don't worry, I'll handle it. Her brow creased, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face. What's that supposed to mean? I met her gaze, unflinching. You'll find out. Then I pushed past her and headed upstairs, leaving her standing there with the weight of those words hanging between us. Underscore 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 underscore. That night, I started making plans. Not for reconciliation. Not for some dramatic confrontation. No, I was done playing defense. If Jessica thought she could humiliate me, manipulate me, and walk away unscathed, she was about to learn otherwise. She wanted to play games? Fine. This time, I was going to win. Underscore 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 underscore. The next morning, Jessica acted like nothing had happened. She sipped her coffee, scrolled through her phone, ate breakfast like we hadn't just smashed our marriage against an iceberg the day before. I didn't go to the gym. Didn't throw myself into work. Instead, I got to work on something else. Leaving her wasn't enough. She had ripped my life apart, so it only seemed fair to return the favor. Step 1? Finding an unexpected ally. Jessica's younger sister, Hannah. Now, Jessica and Hannah had never been what you'd call close. Where Jessica was polished, put together, and always in control, Hannah was sharp-edged, rebellious, and completely unfiltered. And most importantly, she held a long-standing grudge against her big sister. Something about Jessica screwing her over a few years back, stealing the release date for some project, if I remembered right. A petty thing, sure. But useful. I shot Hannah a text. Hey, Mel. Need to talk about Jessica. Coffee? A few minutes later she replied. Sure. Sounds juicy. Perk and grind at 2? When I walked into the cafe that afternoon, Hannah was already there, lazily tapping her nails against the table, a cold latte in front of her. She glanced up as I approached, one eyebrow arched. So, what's the big deal? She asked, smirking. You finally realized my sister's a monster? I couldn't help but laugh. Something like that. I slid into the seat across from her and got straight to the point. I caught her cheating. With the damn mailman. Hannah's eyes widened for a split second before she burst out laughing. Oh my God! That is so Jessica. Always has to be the center of attention, even if it means blowing up everything around her. Well, she screwed up, I said, leaning back. And I'm not letting her off the hook that easily. Her smirk faded slightly, replaced with curiosity. She leaned forward. Go on. I laid it all out, how Jessica had lied, manipulated, betrayed me. How I wasn't just going to walk away and let her rewrite the narrative like she always did. And then I told Hannah my idea. I'm taking out a loan in Jessica's name. Maxing it out. Then I'm disappearing for a while. Somewhere warm. Somewhere expensive. I let the words sink in before adding. And I want you to come with me. Hannah blinked. Wait, you want me to come? Why not? I shrugged. You hate Jessica. I need an accomplice. And well, you've always been a little intriguing. She drummed her nails against the cup, a slow, thoughtful rhythm. Then she smiled. Let me get this straight. You want me to help you screw over my sister, then run off to some tropical paradise with you, like we're partners in crime? Something like that, I said, smiling back. She just stared at me for a beat, her expression unreadable. Then, out of nowhere, she leaned back and let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head in disbelief. You know what? Damn. I'm in. And just like that, the wheels were in motion. By the end of the week, Hannah and I had everything set. Meanwhile, Jessica remained completely unaware, too wrapped up in her own drama to notice the storm brewing right under her nose. She didn't even blink when I forged her signature on the bank documents. As for Hannah, she wasn't just on board, she was thriving. Sharp, resourceful, and, as it turned out, surprisingly fun to be around. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Alive. Jessica had no idea, but her carefully curated little world was about to come crashing down. Everything fell into place faster than I expected. Jessica was so caught up in her usual routine, gallery work, morning yoga, and probably a secret rendezvous with Ethan, that she didn't notice a thing. Meanwhile, Hannah and I moved like clockwork. The loan we took out in Jessica's name wasn't massive, just enough to fund a few months of tropical escape and leave her tangled up in the mess. The day we left, Jessica wasn't even home. Probably working late again. I packed light, just a small bag of essentials, leaving behind anything that suddenly felt meaningless. Hannah pulled up in her old Jeep, the engine growling like it had something to prove. She grinned as I tossed my bag into the back seat. Ready to blow this joint? She asked, her dark eyes glinting with mischief. More than you know, I said, climbing in. First stop? The bank. We cashed out the loan, and as the teller slid the neatly wrapped stacks of bills across the counter, a strange satisfaction settled in my chest. This wasn't just money, it was payback. A clean slate. The start of something new. Next stop? The airport. Hannah had taken care of the flights, booking them under assumed names, a detail she insisted on, and one I definitely appreciated. Our destination? Maui. As we pulled away, the thought of soft sand, rolling waves, and months of absolute freedom felt like the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. As the plane lifted off, I glanced over at Hannah. She was scrolling through her phone, the corner of her mouth curling into a smirk. What's so funny? I asked. She turned the screen toward me. Jessica's latest Instagram post. A selfie from her yoga class, captioned, "Living my best life." Sometimes you just have to throw out the old junk. I'm happy, baby. I let out a sharp laugh. She seriously has no clue, does she? Hannah shrugged, slipping her phone back into her bag. Oh, she'll figure it out soon enough. Landing in Maui felt like stepping into another universe. The air was thick with salt, the ocean stretched endlessly, and every breath felt lighter. We rented a beachfront bungalow, not fancy, but comfortable. A hammock swayed on the porch, and the view alone was enough to make you forget your own name. The first few days were surreal. Mornings spent surfing, afternoons hiking through lush trails, and nights bouncing between local bars. It was effortless. No tension, no second-guessing every conversation. And the absurdity of it all wasn't lost on me. Here I was, a grown man who had just flipped his entire life upside down. I'd walked away from everything, grabbed a beautiful woman, my ex's younger sister, no less, and skipped town to paradise. And to top it all off, I'd used Jessica's money to do it. Was I insane? Maybe. But I was also having the time of my life. Then came the real fun. It started with a simple photo, nothing too crazy. Just me, grinning like I had zero worries, and Hannah in a bikini that left very little to the imagination. I hovered my thumb over the send button. Think we should? Hannah's eyes sparkled with mischief. Oh, absolutely. I sent the photo, along with a quick message to Jessica. Wish you were here. Not really. The reply came faster than I expected. Jessica, what the hell? Where are you? I didn't bother answering. The next day, we upped the ante, this time, a shot of us lounging in a seaside cabana, cocktails in hand. That evening, Jessica called. Twice. I let it ring. The messages kept coming, piling up like a car crash in slow motion. Some were furious. You're a freak, you know that? Some were desperate. We need to talk. Call me. And then there were the ones that just reeked of defeat. Please, let's just get this over with. Every unread text, every missed call, it all felt like a small victory. Hannah, for her part, was thriving. One evening, we lounged in the hammock, passing a bottle of wine between us as the waves hummed in the distance. "I think this might be the best thing I've done in years," she admitted, stretching her legs across my lap. I took a sip and nodded. "Same." And in that moment it hit me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. For the first time in decades, I felt alive. At 45, I wasn't just existing, I was living. Jessica wanted to play games, but she never expected me to change the rules. And as far as I was concerned, this was just the beginning. The morning after we sent that first batch of photos, Jessica's meltdown escalated from frantic texts to full-blown chaos. Sitting on the veranda, coffee in hand, I scrolled through my phone. A dozen missed calls. Text after text, each more unhinged than the last. Hannah, stretched out in the hammock, peeked over her sunglasses. "Let me guess," she said, smirking. "She's spiraling." I grinned and held up the screen. "You could say that." The latest text read, "Do you think this is funny? You've gone too far. Call me now." Hannah nearly spilled her mimosa. "Oh my God! It's cracking. It's gold." Jessica had no clue where I was. Maui was just vague enough to drive her insane. And worse, she knew I wasn't alone. That little detail? It was eating her alive. So we turned up the heat. That afternoon, Hannah booked us a spa session at one of the island's top resorts. While there, we snapped a photo with one of the attendants, a stunning local woman with deep, sun-kissed skin and a mischievous smile that matched Hannah's energy. The caption? Short and sweet. "Friends. Relaxing. Living the dream." Less than 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Jessica. Calling. Again." "Should I answer?" I asked, holding up my buzzing phone. Hannah tilted her head, considering. No. Let it simmer." I smirked, declined the call, and switched off my phone. Whatever Jessica had to say could wait. Right now, I had better things to focus on. The spa treatments were perfect: deep massages, warm oils, ocean breezes that carried every worry out to sea. For the first time in forever, my mind wasn't racing. No tension, no second-guessing. Just peace. That night, Hannah decided it was time to take things a step further. She turned to me, mischief in her eyes. "I think we should send Jessica something edgier." I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" She pulled me closer, her fingers trailing up my arm. "Something to really make her think." The photo was suggestive but tasteful, just the right amount of chaos. Hannah and I, tangled in the sheets, her lips grazing my cheek. A half-empty glass catching the light on the nightstand. The caption? "We believe in new beginnings." I hit send without hesitation. Jessica's response came almost instantly. "What the hell is this? You're disgusting. Who is she?" I didn't reply. Instead, Hannah and I toasted our little victory and let the night unfold, knowing we had just thrown gasoline on the fire. The next morning, Jessica escalated. She called my family. I found out when my sister, Olivia, texted me. "Hey, what's going on? Jessica just called me, crying about some trip you're taking with another woman. Are you okay?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. Of course, Jessica was trying to rewrite the narrative. Hannah leaned over my shoulder, reading the text. "Typical," she muttered. "She's playing victim. Spinning a story." I called Olivia back, keeping it simple. "Jessica's been cheating on me for years. I found out. Now I'm done. That's all there is to it." Silence on the other end. Then Olivia let out a slow breath. "Damn. I'm sorry, but good for you, I guess? Just don't let her pull you back in." I glanced over at Hannah, sprawled on the couch, smirking like she had already won. "Trust me," I said. "That's never happening." Jessica kept calling, kept texting. But I was done letting her control the story. Done playing by her rules. And for the first time in my life, I was the one holding the pen. At this point, the story was mine to tell. And Jessica? She was nothing more than an unfortunate footnote. Over the next few days, her messages took a sharp turn, from accusations dripping with anger to desperate pleas that barely held together. The carefully curated facade of control she once had was falling apart, and it was painfully obvious in every word she sent. Her texts swung wildly between tones. One moment she'd write, "You're just hurting yourself, can't you see that?" The next, "I messed up, okay? Can we please just talk?" And then, finally, "Please, just come home." Watching her unravel was a strange mix of satisfaction and second-hand embarrassment. Meanwhile, Hannah was having the time of her life. She lounged on the porch, cocktail in hand, casually scrolling through Jessica's Instagram feed. With a smirk, she read one of Jessica's latest cryptic posts aloud. "Sometimes we lose things we never knew we had." I rolled my eyes. Classic Jessica, always playing the victim. Hannah chuckled, then tilted her phone toward me. "Oh, and she's been DMing me too." That got my attention. I sat up. "Wait, what?" She grinned, scrolling through the messages. "Yep. She figured out I was the other woman and went straight for the dramatics, begging me to leave you alone." Clearing her throat, she read one of Jessica's messages in an exaggerated, theatrical voice. "You don't understand what we have. You'll never replace me." I shook my head with a laugh. She really doesn't know when to quit. Hannah's smile was sharp, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. "Should I respond?" I smirked. "Go for it. Let's see how this plays out." With a mischievous glint, she started typing. A moment later, she held the phone up so I could read her response. "Oh, honey, I'm not replacing you. I'm perfecting it." The second she hit send, Jessica fired back. "You're trash. He'll leave you, just like everyone else." Hannah snorted, tossing her phone onto the cushion beside her. Predictable. That night, we decided to raise the stakes. Hannah suggested we set up a romantic dinner right on the beach, complete with candles and a bottle of Jessica's favorite wine, which I had made sure to take with me when I left. We snapped a picture of the setup, just enough lighting to capture the intimacy of the moment, then sent it with the caption, "Life is better when you leave your baggage behind." This time, Jessica didn't text back. Instead, my phone lit up with her name, calling, over and over again, her persistence as annoying as a mosquito that refused to be swatted away. "Think I should answer?" I asked Hannah, idly twirling the stem of my glass between my fingers. She tilted her head, considering. Yeah, why not? Let's hear what she has to say." I swiped to accept the call and put it on speaker. "Hello?" For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then Jessica's voice cut through, sharp and unsteady. "What the hell are you doing, Ryan? Is that really you?" I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone deliberately casual. "Funny," I said. "I was just about to ask you the same thing." "You're acting ridiculous," she snapped. "I get it, okay? You're hurt. I screwed up. But this little stunt of yours? It's pathetic." I glanced over at Hannah, who simply gave me a nod. "Keep going." "Pathetic?" I echoed, letting amusement creep into my voice. "Like, say, sneaking around with the mailman for 5 years? Lying to my face every single day? That's different," Jessica shot back, her voice rising. "We were breaking up, and I was lonely. But this is just cruel." I shook my head, exhaling slowly. "Cruel?" I repeated. "Jessica, you haven't even begun to see cruelty." Hannah leaned in, her lips close to the phone. "Hey there, Jessica," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. On the other end, there was a sharp inhale. Then, through clenched teeth, Jessica hissed, "You've got some nerve." Hannah's tone hardened in an instant. "Careful," she warned. "You wouldn't want to embarrass yourself any more than you already have." A pause. Then Jessica's voice dropped to something low and venomous. "You're both going to regret this." The call ended with a sharp click, and for a moment, the tension hung in the air. Then Hannah and I burst into laughter. "She is fuming right now," Hannah said, wiping a tear from her eye. I lifted my glass. To Jessica, finally getting a taste of her own medicine. But as the night stretched on and the waves rolled gently onto the shore, a thought lingered in the back of my mind. Was that enough? Or was there still more to be done? The peace of our island getaway shattered the next morning when I checked my email. Jessica was never one to sit back and take a hit without swinging back. And this? This was her counterattack. The subject line read, "We need to talk." The message itself was a masterclass in manipulation, equal parts apology and veiled threat. She started off trying to sound vulnerable. "I know I hurt you, Ryan, and I truly am sorry for that. But what you're doing? It's not just cruel, it's dangerous. You're destroying both of our lives. Do you really think this is going to end well?" Then came the real blow. "I spoke to a lawyer. If you don't come home and handle this like an adult, I'll have no choice but to escalate the situation. You've left me no choice." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, letting her words settle in. From the porch, Hannah sipped her coffee, catching my expression. She set her mug down and walked over. "What's up?" Hannah asked, leaning casually against the table. I turned the screen toward her. She scanned the email, her eyebrows lifting as she read. "Wow. Classic Jessica. Apologize just enough to seem reasonable, then drop a legal threat like a hammer." I nodded. "Exactly. But I don't buy it. She's bluffing." Hannah's lips curled into a slow, unreadable smile. "Then let's call her bluff." We spent the next hour crafting my response, concise, direct, and laced with just enough indifference to get under her skin. "Jessica, I appreciate your concern, but my decision is final. This isn't about you anymore, it's about me choosing my own happiness. If you want to involve lawyers, go ahead. Just remember, we both know who created this mess in the first place. Best, Ryan." I hit send, a rush of satisfaction mixing with the simmering defiance in my chest. Hannah lifted her coffee cup and clinked it against mine. "To standing your ground." But Jessica wasn't done yet. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Chris, a mutual friend. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, so seeing his name flash on my screen made me hesitate. I answered. "Chris? What's up?" "Ryan, man, what the hell is going on?" His voice was tense. "Jessica's been calling everyone, saying you've completely lost it." I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "She's twisting the story, Chris. It's simple, she cheated on me for years. I found out. I left. End of story." Chris hesitated. "Cheated? With who?" "Ethan," I said flatly. "The mailman." Silence. Then, after a beat, Chris erupted into laughter. "The mailman? You're messing with me." "I wish I was." He let out a low whistle. "Wow. Alright, that's insane. Look, I'll steer clear of her, but just a heads up, she's been talking about hiring a private investigator." I exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. "Let her. She's just throwing punches in the dark." That night, Hannah and I decided to raise the stakes again. We booked a private dinner at an upscale, cliffside restaurant with a breathtaking view of the ocean. The golden hues of the sunset painted the perfect backdrop for our next move. This time, we took it up a notch. Instead of just a photo, we recorded a short video, nothing too flashy, just us clinking glasses, laughing, and soaking in the breathtaking view. At the very end, Hannah leaned into the frame, flashing a playful smile. "I hope you're okay, Jessica." "Yay," she chirped. We sent it with a simple caption. "Finding peace." The silence that followed was almost eerie. No calls, no texts, no emails from Jessica that night. For a moment it felt off. But Hannah, ever the strategist, just stretched lazily in her chair and smirked. "Give it time. This is just the calm before the storm." And of course, she was right. By morning, Jessica's next email had arrived, dripping with fury. "You think this is a game? You're playing with fire, Ryan. Don't say I didn't warn you." Hannah leaned over my shoulder, scanning the message, then grinned. "She's unraveling." I shut my laptop with a quiet click. Then let it burn. But no matter how calm I tried to play it, something in my gut told me this wasn't over. Jessica was never the type to admit defeat. She was calculated, always thinking 2 steps ahead. I knew she'd hit back. The only question was when, and how. For the next few days, there was nothing but silence. No emails, no calls. Just peace. Hannah and I settled deeper into our island escape, surfing at dawn, drinking under the stars, indulging in that reckless, intoxicating romance that made me feel like I'd been given a second chance at life. But Jessica? She was never one to let things slide. I was in the kitchen, slicing up fresh pineapple, when my phone buzzed. At first I thought it was just another spam email, or maybe a weather alert about an incoming tropical storm. But then I saw the subject line, and my stomach dropped. I hope she sees this. The sender? Jessica. Attached was a link. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. It was a Facebook post. And not just any post, a public one. It started off innocently enough. Sometimes we think we truly know someone, but life has a funny way of showing us their true colors. And then the dagger. Jessica had written a long, dramatic account of our marriage, her twisted version of it. She painted herself as the heartbroken, devoted wife who had been blindsided by betrayal. According to her, I hadn't just left, I had run off with her troubled little sister. But the real damage? The photos. She had gone through old family pictures, cropping and editing them to fit her narrative. One was from a Christmas party 2 years ago, Hannah laughing at a joke I had told. The caption underneath read, "I guess the signs were always there." The air in the room seemed to thicken. Hannah walked in, towel-drying her hair, and immediately picked up on my tense posture. "What's wrong?" I handed her my phone, watching as her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. "Wow," she muttered, shaking her head. "She really went all in, huh? She's trying to destroy me," I said, pacing the room. Hannah set the phone down on the counter, folding her arms over it. "Let her," she said calmly. "The people who matter will see through it. And the ones who believe her? They're not worth your time." I wanted to believe that, but it didn't make the situation any easier. Jessica had always known exactly how to twist the knife, and she never did anything without a calculated purpose. "Maybe we should put something out there," I muttered. "Establish the truth." Hannah shook her head. "That's what she wants, a reaction. The best thing you can do is live your life and let the truth unfold. Trust me, Ryan. It always comes out." I tried to take her advice, but sleep didn't come easy that night. I kept imagining the fallout, friends whispering, family taking sides, strangers forming opinions based on a twisted version of events. But by morning, something had shifted. As I sat on the porch, sipping my coffee, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from my sister, Olivia. "Saw Jessica's post." She overplayed her hand. "Don't worry, I handled a few people." I let out a slow exhale, a wave of relief washing over me. Hannah leaned over, glancing at the message. "See?" she said with a small smile. "You've got people in your corner." And she was right. As the day went on, my inbox filled with texts from friends and family. Some were furious on my behalf, others reassured me that no one was buying Jessica's sob story. A few even joked about the absurdity of her post. By evening, the tide had completely turned. Jessica's Facebook post, meant to paint me as the villain, had backfired spectacularly. The comments were filled with people calling her out, poking holes in her story, and even mocking the sheer dramatics of it all. Hannah and I popped open a bottle of champagne that night, clinking glasses in celebration. "For someone who thinks she's so damn calculated," Hannah mused, swirling the bubbles in her glass. "Jessica sure knows how to shoot herself in the foot." I laughed, finally feeling the tension of the past few days ease. "Yeah. And the best part? I didn't even have to do anything. Jessica had played her hand, and all it did was expose her for who she really was. But something told me she wasn't finished. I had assumed Jessica's meltdown peaked with the Facebook post. I was wrong. A week after her public tantrum, my phone buzzed again, this time with an email from Chris, the same mutual friend who had warned me before. The subject line read, "Thought you should know." Attached was a screenshot of a Craigslist ad. "Scam warning, beware of this person." And right beneath it, my photo. Jessica had gone all in. The ad was a dramatic, over-the-top retelling of her version of events, painting me as a manipulative husband who had abandoned her for her unstable younger sister. I stared at the screen, feeling something between rage and disbelief. Hannah walked in, catching the look on my face. What now? Wordlessly, I turned the phone toward her. She took one glance at it, then let out a low whistle. Wow. She's really spiraling. I clenched my jaw. She's trying to destroy me. Hannah looked up, her expression unreadable. Then she grinned. Well, she said, setting the phone down. Let's destroy her first. Hannah, who was right beside me, read the email over my shoulder. She barely made it through the first few lines before bursting into laughter, nearly spilling her iced tea. She's lost it, she said between chuckles. This isn't funny, I muttered, though I couldn't help the smirk tugging at my lips. This could seriously mess with my reputation. Hannah shrugged, still grinning. Ryan, anyone who actually believes a random Craigslist post isn't someone you need in your life. Besides, this screams desperation. She's grasping at straws. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. She had a point. But it still irritated me. Jessica had spent years crafting the image of the perfect wife, charming, graceful, untouchable. And now, she was using that same charm to paint me as the villain. What should we do? I asked. Hannah's smile widened. What we've always done, live our best life and let her bury herself. That evening, we decided to give Jessica another little nudge, just to keep her off balance. We went to a beach party hosted by some locals we befriended, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, we snapped a playful photo, Hannah and I dancing barefoot in the sand, caught mid-laughter, the ocean breeze in our hair. We posted it with the caption, "Some storms are worth living through." The next morning, it had the intended effect. Jessica's messages started rolling in, angry rants, emotional outbursts, and then, the desperate pleas. You ruined my life. How could you do this to me? I miss you. Please, Ryan, just come home. I ignored them all, but that last one lingered in my mind longer than I wanted to admit. She's unraveling, I told Hannah as we sat on the porch, coffee cups in hand. I think this might be her breaking point. Hannah took a slow sip, her eyes sparkling with satisfaction. Good. She deserves it. But Jessica wasn't finished. That afternoon, Chris called again, his voice more serious than before. Hey, buddy. I don't know how to say this, but Jessica told me you've been showing up at your parents' house. She thinks you're hiding there. I groaned, rubbing my temples. Of course she thinks that. Hannah raised an eyebrow. And now what? She's trying to drag my family into this mess, I said, already feeling the familiar frustration creeping in. Jessica was escalating. Again. And I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Hannah set her cup down, her expression cold and unwavering. We have to put an end to this. That night, I finally decided to confront Jessica, on my terms. No calls, no drawn-out arguments. Just one final email. Jessica. This stops now. You've humiliated yourself enough. The more you push, the worse you make yourself look. If you want to waste your energy spreading lies, go ahead. But the truth has a funny way of coming out, and everyone who matters already sees you for who you are. Move on with your life. Ryan. It was short, sharp, and left no room for debate. I didn't wait for her response. I blocked her everywhere, emails, social media, even changed my phone number. The next morning, as Hannah and I boarded a catamaran to explore the nearby islands, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Jessica could kick and scream all she wanted, but I wasn't giving her any more power over my life. With Hannah by my side and the open ocean stretching out before me, I realized something. I wasn't just escaping Jessica's chaos. I was finally free. A new chapter. Life with Hannah was everything I never thought it could be, easy, fun, drama-free. After years of walking on eggshells with Jessica, it felt like stepping out of the shadows and into the light. But it wasn't just Hannah who made this new chapter feel so full. There was someone else. Chloe. She worked at the spa where Hannah and I first met, a gorgeous, vibrant woman with deep, sun-kissed skin and a laugh that could light up an entire room. We first connected during a couple's massage, when Hannah casually invited her to join us for cocktails. I didn't think much of it at the time, but by the end of that evening, the three of us were laughing like we'd known each other for years. One night turned into many: beach walks, late-night conversations, effortless companionship. Hannah and Chloe had this easy, electric chemistry, and to my surprise, Chloe and I connected just as naturally. It all came to a head one evening at our place, curled up on the couch watching a movie. Chloe turned to us with a playful smirk. "You two are adorable, you know that?" Hannah nudged her shoulder, grinning. "And you're not exactly on the sidelines, Chloe." I raised an eyebrow, unsure where this was going. But then Hannah turned to me, her smile slow and knowing. "What do you think, Ryan?" she asked. "Life's already unconventional. We might as well lean into it." I chuckled, caught off guard but intrigued. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Hannah just shrugged, her grin never fading. "Why not? Life's too short." Chloe giggled, raising her wine glass. "Then here's to breaking the rules." And just like that, we stepped into something entirely new, something unorthodox, unexpected, but completely right for us. We didn't care what anyone else thought. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who made me feel alive. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. As our connection deepened, the three of us didn't just build a life together, we thrived in it. We moved into a cozy, sunlit house by the sea, with just enough space for each of us to have our own corner while still feeling like a family. The ocean became our backdrop, the sound of the waves our daily rhythm. One evening, as we sat on the deck watching the tide roll in, Chloe turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Ryan, have you ever really thought about how far you've come?" I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. My mind flicked back to Jessica, to the chaos, to the version of myself I had left behind. "All the time," I admitted. "It's funny, I used to think everything she did was ruining my life. And now? I almost want to thank her." Hannah let out a laugh, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "That's some serious growth, baby." I smiled, shaking my head. "She gave me the push I needed to leave. And because of that, I found this. Us. I don't even hold a grudge anymore. All that anger, all that resentment, it's just gone." Chloe raised her glass, her eyes warm. "To letting go and moving forward. To freedom," I added. As the night stretched on, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. This life, our life, was exactly where I was meant to be. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was truly living. A year later, sitting on the same deck where we had once toasted to freedom, I watched the sun sink into the ocean. The air was thick with the scent of salt and warm sand, and in the distance, the sound of children's laughter rang out. My two youngest, Emma, all boundless energy and wild curls, and Jackson, quieter but sharp as a whip, were building a sandcastle together. They were my greatest treasures, living proof of how much my life had changed. Back when Jessica and I fell apart, the idea of having kids had felt like an impossible dream, something for another lifetime. But now, their laughter blended with the waves, grounding me in a life I never thought I'd have. Hannah and Chloe joined me on the deck, each carrying a glass of lemonade. Hannah eased into the lounge chair beside me, while Chloe leaned against the railing, her smile as warm as the setting sun. "Look at them," Chloe murmured, nodding toward the kids. "They've got it all figured out, haven't they? Just enjoying life, no worries, no expectations." Hannah chuckled, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "They get that from Ryan. He's just a big kid himself." I grinned, raising my glass. "Guilty as charged. But if this is my inheritance, I'll gladly accept it." Life wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. Our unconventional family worked in a way that was hard to explain but easy to feel. The three of us balanced each other effortlessly, each bringing something different to the table. Of course, there were challenges. People didn't always understand our dynamic, and every now and then, Jessica's shadow tried to creep back in. Most recently, it came in the form of a letter, a notice from a collection agency about an old loan I had signed during my marriage. As I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paper in my hands, Hannah walked in and caught the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting her coffee down. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Jessica," I muttered. "Looks like she's still finding ways to haunt me. Just one last gift from Jessica." I said dryly, waving the letter around. Looks like I'm still paying for her shopping spree. Chloe walked in, a plate of freshly baked cookies in hand, and raised an eyebrow. You're gonna let that ruin your day? I scoffed, shaking my head. No way. In fact, I think I'll just pay it off early, consider it my final farewell gift to her. If Jessica hadn't been such a disaster, I wouldn't have this life. So, in a weird way, I actually owe her. Hannah nearly choked on her coffee, laughing. Only you could turn Jessica's nonsense into an exercise in gratitude. Chloe grinned, her laughter deep and contagious. I think that's called growing up, ladies and gentlemen. That evening, after the kids were tucked in and the house settled into its quiet rhythm, I found myself on the couch, Hannah and Chloe curled up against me. The weight of the past felt like a distant echo, replaced by the warmth of the present. I used to think freedom meant just running away from Jessica. I murmured, breaking the silence. But it's more than that. It's this. It's choosing the life I've built with the people who make it worth living. Hannah kissed my cheek, her voice soft. And we're lucky to have you, Ryan. You remind us to laugh at the hard things and celebrate the good ones. Chloe nodded, her gaze warm. Here's to more of that, more love, more laughter, and more sunsets with our crazy little family. I looked toward the horizon, watching the last streaks of sunlight sink beneath the waves. The man I used to be, the one who felt trapped, bitter, and broken, was long gone. In his place stood someone who had learned to let go, to love, and to embrace the unpredictable beauty of life. And for that, I was endlessly grateful.